July 2011, quiet apartment complex in Macon, Georgia. A young woman named Lauren Giddings had suddenly disappeared. Her friends were worried, police were searching, and one of Lauren's neighbors agreed to give a live interview to the news about it. His name was Stephen McDaniel, but during the interview, something happened. The reporter mentioned that police had just discovered a body. And in that moment, Stephen McDaniel's entire world collapsed on live television. Lauren Giddings was a 27-year-old law student. She had just graduated from Mercer University School of Law. Her friends described her as kind, intelligent, and incredibly driven. Lauren lived in a small apartment complex near the campus. It was a quiet place where many students lived while finishing their degrees. But Lauren had plans beyond school. She wanted to travel. She wanted to build a career. She had her whole future ahead of her. And suddenly, she vanished. On June 26th, Lauren's friends realized something was wrong. She hadn't answered calls. She hadn't shown up to scheduled events, and no one had seen her in days. Soon, police were called to the apartment complex. Officers began knocking on doors and asking neighbors questions. One neighbor seemed especially helpful, Stephen McDaniel. He told investigators he barely knew Lauren, but he said he had seen police activity and was worried about her. When reporters arrived at the apartment complex, Stephen agreed to speak on camera. At the time, he appeared calm, soft-spoken, even concerned. But something about the interview would soon become unforgettable. During the live broadcast, the reporter asked Stephen about Lauren. He described her as quiet, friendly, someone who mostly kept to herself. Then the reporter suddenly said something that changed everything. Police had just discovered a body near the apartment complex. The camera stayed on Stephen's face, and his reaction was immediate. His breathing changed. His eyes widened. He stopped speaking. For several seconds, he looked completely frozen, like someone whose mind was suddenly racing. People watching the broadcast noticed the moment instantly. Something about his reaction felt deeply wrong, and it would soon become one of the most analyzed clips in true crime history. The body police found belonged to Lauren Giddings. Her remains had been discovered inside a trash bin outside the apartment complex. It was a horrific discovery. Investigators immediately began looking at everyone connected to the building, including Stephen McDaniel. At first, Stephen continued acting like a concerned neighbor, but detectives soon discovered something disturbing. Stephen had been secretly obsessed with Lauren. Investigators later found evidence that he had been stalking her for months. He had taken photos of her, watched her from a distance, and even broken into her apartment before. The quiet neighbor was hiding a very dark secret. Police eventually brought Stephen in for questioning. What followed was one of the strangest interrogations detectives had ever seen. For hours, Stephen barely moved. He sat almost completely still, sometimes staring at the wall, sometimes staring at the table. He spoke very little. Investigators tried different tactics. They asked about Lauren. They asked about his movements. They even confronted him with evidence. But Stephen remained eerily calm, almost robotic. Then detectives began revealing what they already knew. The lies started collapsing, piece by piece, until there was nowhere left to hide. Eventually, the investigation revealed the horrifying truth. Stephen McDaniel had broken into Lauren's apartment. He murdered her inside her own home. Then he attempted to dispose of her body. Investigators later discovered tools, evidence, and disturbing digital activity that connected him directly to the crime. The quiet law student neighbor was actually the killer, and the moment he realized police had found the body, had been captured live on television. Psychologists and investigators later studied Stephen's reaction during that interview. The sudden freeze, the rapid breathing, the complete loss of composure. Many experts believe that moment revealed pure shock, because for the first time, Stephen realized the crime had been discovered and that he was no longer in control of the situation. It was a rare moment where the mask slipped and the world watched it happen in real time. The case of Lauren Giddings remains one of the most disturbing crimes captured on live television. A young woman lost her life, and the person responsible stood just feet away from the cameras, pretending to be innocent. But sometimes the truth reveals itself in the smallest moments. A change in breathing, a frozen expression, a reaction that can't be controlled. And in this case, one moment of shock exposed everything.